Okay, hi, and welcome to It's Not Obvious, Learn from Others edition. And today I have with me Cocona to talk to us about what it's like being a woman cosplayer. Right, so who Cocona is, and this is her. This is her picture, and from a recent event where she went to PAX, and that's why you have the mask, because she's being responsible and staying safe. And as a reminder, the Learn from Others series is really intended to be for fun, kind of, for the given definition of fun. Typically, it's about topics that I have little knowledge of, and in this case, I kind of cosplay a little bit, but I'm definitely not a woman, so I don't know what it's like for a woman to be a cosplayer and the kind of challenges that they face. So, um, Cocona has graciously agreed to join us today to talk about some of these topics. I want to ask her, what do some of her non-cosplayer friends or family misunderstand about her cosplaying? What's not obvious to them? And some of the challenges about being a woman cosplayer. And specifically, I want to know, what does she wish? What do Cocona or other cosplay women wish men in particular know about what it's like to be a woman cosplayer? And part of the reason why I want to do this is because having been in the cosplay scene a little bit more, not too deep into it, I keep hearing and I keep reading about various concerns about how man treats women who are in cosplay. And I hope it's not going to be too heavy a topic, but I do want to address it, and I do want to hear Cocona's thoughts about it. This episode is really intended for anyone who is interested in knowing more about being a woman cosplayer or about cosplaying in general. And there's actually an Instagram that Cocona has for her cosplays, which I'm going to show to all of you in a moment, and we'll talk through some of those too potentially. As a reminder, typical disclaimer, this episode is intended to be anecdotal. It is not at all intended to be representative of all women or all cosplayers all around the world. It is intended to be essentially a chat with me and my friend Cocona and dig a little deeper into her past experiences. Okay, cool. So, let's see. We, before I call Cocona to join us real quick, this is Cocona's Instagram page, and this is her picture from the recent one where I've had a few friends look at this picture and like, oh my gosh, Cocona, you look amazing. You look super pretty, and I was like, hey, I need a pretty face to join me for my episode, and happy enough to have you talk about it. And here, this is the first time I met Cocona and Ish together with Cocona. This was SakuraCon 2018. Yep. And that was really fun. And since then, clearly, both Cocona and Ish have leveled up a lot in terms of their cosplay. So, uh, Cocona, thank you for joining me today. And um, yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to get cracking on this interview.
Okay, that's great. So, for those of you who are watching and who are hoping to see Cocona in the video, we're staying away from that for this particular episode. We're just going to go over the various pictures that Cocona has in her public Instagram. So, as you can see, Cocona regularly do a wide variety of cosplays, which is great, which is really cool. And this is public, open for everyone to see from all sorts of genre, from video games to, I think this is Final Fantasy, right? Is
Yes, that one's
this
Final Fantasy. That's
this
Yuna.
is Yuna?
Final
I don't think
Fantasy
I've seen you
10.
as Yuna before.
I
It
used to
looks great.
cosplay her a lot.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So, huh? And then of course Tarja and
Th-
um,
Those
Bowsette
were
and Boosette.
yeah, the Bowsette and Boozette. Boozette's my friend Maki.
Oh, oh yeah, Maki. Yeah,
hmm
I remember. She's in Japan right now, right? Or
No,
something.
she's back here. She's
Oh,
back
she's
here.
back already. Okay,
hmm
that's cool. Yeah, I haven't seen all of you for like a long time. But anyway, so there's a lot of stuff here that if you want to, definitely give Cocona a follow because that would be really cool. Okay, so let's go through the questions real quick. Do I guess just starting with the questions that I said I was gonna ask. Um, what do your non-cosplay friends or family misunderstand about you cosplaying? What's not obvious to them about you cosplaying?
So I don't really have friends who don't cosplay.
Oh,
And
really?
I do make acquaintances, but it's not something that I ever bring up. So
Ah,
it's
okay.
like it's a side that I usually keep hidden. I also have like I have like separate social media, of course, where I have a personal, and then I have my like my stage name, which is Cocona, and I don't
Yep.
ever bring up my real name or anything about my personal life to my
Yeah.
cosplay friends.
And in fact, it took me like several years to find out your real name, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And by that point, I'm so used to think of you of Cocona, I keep forgetting what your real name is. And again, you don't have to tell me. And I was just like, "Oh yeah, cool. Hey, it's just Cocona. She's cool and she does amazing cosplays." Is there a particular reason why? Again, you don't have to answer if you're not comfortable with this. Is there a particular reason why you keep the two so separated?
I keep them so separated so that stalkers can't find me.
Okay, so that
Hmm.
implies to me that there is a real problem there with stalkers.
Hmm. There is.
Wow.
So my private life is completely separate from my life. My cosplay life is mainly like my cosplay friends, and then I don't like to bring in people who aren't from the scene because normies do have misunderstandings. And if you've ever gone to like a convention that was more of like a normie con, a lot of this is going to play into what a lot of men misunderstand about cosplay, and it's
Okay.
not like cosplay men, but a lot of the normie men who try to get into the scene and don't understand cosplay or convention etiquette. And
Okay.
then
Well,
for
what are some of those convention etiquettes?
well, it's, cosplay is not consent. It's just also realizing that the person in the costume is also a person. They're not like an actual character that you're like, oh, this is my waifu, and then like you got to understand that it's totally a separate person, that they are not being they're not they're dressing up for fun. They're not being like, how do
Oh
I
my
say
God.
this, like,
Do people really have that much of a difficulty separating reality from fiction?
I think a lot of people do.
And by people, I think you mean men in particular, right?
It's just men, and then also like younger kids in the cosplay community, they also need to learn to
Ah,
separate fiction from reality too. So
okay, but I'm guessing that when it comes to younger kids, that's not something you're particularly concerned about,
it's
right?
not something that I'm concerned about. It's something that they'll probably learn as they get older, but it's just not as obvious to a lot of men, particularly. So, um, when it comes to family, though, I usually don't bring it up. I know that. So I come from a very strict background that's not very open to the things that I like to do as a hobby and
Oh wow.
cosplay.
Okay, I
So,
didn't know that.
so I'm half Vietnamese, but I'm like my family is full Vietnamese, and they are like traditional Vietnamese. And when I mean like traditional, you got like the tiger mom,
Oh
the
wow.
very strict tiger mom. She's even year of the tiger, so it's very fitting. So,
Jeez.
um, so I have a very strict tiger mom, and because of that, because she grew up Vietnamese and I grew up American, we have a lot of cultural clashes, and I am more, I guess, to her, I'm like wild and free spirited, and I don't care about what others think about me. I don't have um, like for her, she's all about keeping up appearances. And so we drifted
Uh,
apart, but because she's my mom, she likes to stalk my stuff and have a heart attack whenever she sees the things that I post. And then if I ever do run into her and she'll like come and reprimand me for for the things I post. I'm like, what? It's not like anybody knows it's me. You didn't recognize me at first. But
wow.
I don't bring it up to my family at all. If there's anyone in the family who knew, it's probably just like my brothers, my mom, my dad. Um, and my sister-in-laws, and that's it. The rest of the family doesn't know because I don't want to bring it up and I don't want to deal with them
Okay.
about it.
Well, so for some of the family there that do know you, that do know you do some of these things, what and that clearly you trust them enough, or I don't know, maybe they just happen to find out. Is there anything there that is not obvious to them about your cosplays that you wish were a little bit more obvious?
Well, I do it for fun and I do it for myself, but I think in their eyes, like them specifically, and excuse my language, they just think of it as like attention seeking and being a hoe. But for me, I do it for myself. I do it because it makes me feel good and I really like what I do, and they just don't understand that. To them, it's just more of like attention seeking. Oh, you're exposing so much skin. You're being it's like you're being a slut or you're being a whore,
Oh,
etc.
okay. Yeah.
So coming from a very strict family background, that's how it comes off to them, and that's misunderstandings that we have. Like, I don't think they understand about like women empowerment and feeling good and doing things. You do it for yourself, you don't do it for others.
Right.
So
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a concept that a lot of people struggle with, right? Especially men, not understanding about women empowerment and how, you, and that's actually something that I myself had to learn very intentionally from my wife, that women dresses up pretty, puts on makeup, puts on, sexy underwear, not for the benefit of men, but because they want to do it for themselves. They want to feel good, they want to look good, and so on. Um, am I correct there?
yeah, I think you're very correct there. Whenever I dress up and I'm like, "Ooh, I'm feeling a little bit scandalous today." It's for me to look at myself in the mirror and be like, "Oh yeah, I feel good." It's not for it's not for me to go off and show off to men and be all like, "You like this?" Because I could give no shits about what
Yeah,
men think, but
yeah, yeah. I can relate to that, and I can
and
understand
then
that.
also it makes me
Yep.
feel good because like I like to take those pictures and I like to show it to my other girlfriends and I like it when we uplift each other. So in
Okay.
this kind of community, it can be really, really toxic, and there are a lot of people who have like elitist mentality, and they 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 kind of taint the environment because they become really competitive and they're just not nice people, and that's not the
Mm.
kind of thing that I'm all about. I'm all about, uplifting my friends, helping my friends. I want me and my friends to feel good about each other. And
Yeah, totally.
I think women are very vicious when it comes to trying to tear down other people, whether it be like jealousy or if they're envious. But I think people should carry the mentality that we should be uplifting each other as a group, as a whole, and being kind to each other instead of being competitive and trying to hurt other people.
Mm.
So that's that's another thing in the I feel that's big in the cosplay community too, is we cosplay is for fun. We all need to be nice to each other, and that we do it for fun and we do it so that we can share our interests and connect with other people. And, we have our own group to be dorks together. With Like I said, I separate my cosplay life because I feel like I cannot connect with normie people on these matters because they're typically not as passionate as me.
Mm. Okay. So you've used that term a couple of times now, normie, and what's the difference there? And so, for full disclosure, and probably being more transparent than I need to be, that was something that I realized a long time ago when I started getting into this. So I didn't go to SakuraCon until after I was an adult and I was already married and I just had my first kid, kind of thing. And I was like, oh my God, where have this been all my life? But I kind of understood why, because I was poor and I didn't have the freedom of space and time to explore something like that. And so I was like, wow, where have this been all my life? I wish I had I wish I had done this a lot sooner when I was like a teenager or in college or something, but I didn't have the opportunity for one reason or another. And then I realized that instead of just taking pictures of people, it's a lot easier and a lot better for me to kind of plug myself into the community by also being a cosplayer myself. And so sometimes I consider myself like a fake cosplayer because I just put on some simple cosplay, some simple outfits, just so that I can uh, connect to cosplayers a little bit better and chat with them, understand why they cosplay, take pictures together with them, and sometimes hopefully become friends. Because I personally think that a lot of people who cosplay are really, really cool and very creative, and I want to get to know them better. And that's also part of the reason why I'm super happy, super thankful that you're doing this episode with me because it gives me an opportunity to get to know you better too, which is something I would like to do to get to know you and Ish better. Anyway, so um, what what's the difference there between normie and cosplayer? What's the biggest gap?
So first, I just wanted to let you know that you're not a fake cosplayer. That's called a closet cosplay. Called a closet
Nice.
cosplay.
Yes.
And so normies are people who aren't really into anime, gaming, uh,
Mm.
some of the nerdy stuff that a lot of convention people are into. Like, so what's great about these conventions is that it takes people from all over that are really passionate and interested with it, and like, anime, gaming, just geeking out and connecting, and it brings us together and it helps us connect with others who like these things, because when you're out in the world, it's especially like back in the day in school, like you didn't bring it up, or else you'd be like, the outcast. That person's not cool. They're not a cheerleader. They're not a jock. They don't watch, I don't know, those reality TV shows, or what were what were some of like the cool kid shows back in the day.
I don't
I know
remember.
I
Like
know in Disney,
Beverly Hills, maybe.
yeah, and then like what genre? So back in the day, like That's So Raven,
Oh,
um,
okay.
Hannah Montana, just like live actions. That was like cool in school, but like I was never into that kind of stuff. All I ever did was watch anime, and people thought I was weird. So I grew up not having very many friends. So growing up like
Mm,
that, you feel like it's hard to connect with other people
I
because they're
see.
not into the stuff that you like. They think you're weird. You feel excluded from everything. I'm like, that girl over there, she's weird. Anyway, so uh, finding out about conventions is like a total life changer, because then all those people that did feel excluded back in the day, it brings them together, and then they can connect, and then they feel like they have friends, and they feel like they're not weird. And then you like build a community, which is great. And then
I see. Okay. So my
so
takeaway from that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, my takeaway from that is that for you and a lot of other people like you, cosplay is a way for you to find your people. Is for you to
yeah,
find essentially like a place where you can blend in, you can belong, and you can be like, hey, we're all geeks together and we love these things. And like, yeah, like that's cool. Whereas for people who are not cosplayers from the outside looking in, they're like, oh, look at this hot chick who's showing a lot of skin. Surely she's trying to get some attention. And it's like, hmm, yeah.
yeah, a little bit, exactly. So cosplay was a great way to like connect with other people, feel like you belong and you fit in somewhere. That's why. Have you heard of the term? Uh, what was the term? It's like it's after con, you go back to reality, and
Oh
it's like
yeah,
post
the
con
after con blues,
depression.
post con blues.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So that's pretty
yeah.
much how it feels. You feel like you
I've
belong.
experienced that
So
too, by the way.
yeah,
But
you
yeah,
feel like you belong when the convention's happening, and then the moment the convention is over, you're like, oh, time to return back to reality and
yeah.
not be able to like geek
Oh
out. You
man,
gotta work.
now you're making me
You gotta
wish that I
be
went to PAX with you
super
guys. I'm like,
professional. Oh, PAX
Yeah.
this year was wild. It's pretty crazy. It's fun.
Really? Wait,
Hmm.
why was it wild and crazy?
It was just fun. There was a lot of rooftop parties
Oh, really?
because
Hmm.
with COVID and everything, people haven't really been able to go out and socialize, and
Right.
this was like the only convention where us geeks in Washington could actually come together. And we also had a lot of friends fly in from like California too,
Mm.
because there just haven't been any conventions since they've been all canceled. Everybody's like, it's COVID's been hard on people not being able to interact socially, not being able to see friends. It's like something that you were so used to doing before, and then all of that's taken away. But it's understandable because you got to be safe.
Yeah.
What's nice about, even though we were having rooftop parties, everybody vaccinated, or if they didn't have their vaccination, they showed up with a COVID negative test.
Mm.
So
Okay. Yeah, and it's been 2 weeks, and there hasn't been any outbreaks that I heard of from PAX, which is really good and which is really comforting. And that was something that I was concerned with. That was one of my biggest concerns, where it's like, yeah, I don't really want to expose myself or my family to that kind of risk. So I decided to sit it out this year. And but um, it sounds like everybody there was really responsible, from what I've heard so far, and that's a good thing.
yeah,
Okay.
so PAX was requiring proof of vaccination for you to join, and they had like this wristband that they had you put on to show that you were it was just proof of vaccination. Or if you couldn't be vaccinated, you had to have proof of a negative COVID test from like a testing site.
Okay. Okay, cool.
So
Well, so also what I'm hearing there is that, and probably something that might not be obvious to people who aren't paying attention too closely or who haven't seen this before, we were talking about how these are your people, and you have a clear separation between cosplay friends and non-cosplay friends. And so COVID has been especially hard because there hasn't been conventions, and so you have not been able to get together with any cosplay friends, for lack of a better word.
mhm.
So it's like a whole other aspect of your identity, of your life that was just completely shut down for a while.
I kind of took it as a time to start working on a lot of cosplay. So
Okay.
I it's another thing that I like doing. So I also like cosplaying because I like crafting,
Mm.
and so I have so much cosplay lined up that I haven't been able to do because of COVID. And during that time, you keep working. I mean, it's something. It gives you something to do so that you
Right.
don't get like depressed.
Mm.
Because some people do get depressed when they can't see friends, and they were looking so forward to like these events, and they were taken away. But with cosplay, there's a lot of crafting. There's a lot of things you can do to keep yourself busy. And then, could you repeat your question again?
Oh
I
no,
I got.
that was great. I think the other thing that wasn't obvious there in terms of cosplay, before I started doing cosplay, is just how freaking expensive it is. Like, oh my gosh, it takes so much money, it takes so much time, it takes so much effort just
Oh,
to put together a costume, all of the props, to put on the makeup, and I'm just like, yeah, this is not a reason why I didn't do this when I was younger, because I didn't have the money or the time to do this kind of stuff.
it
But
is very expensive. Just so you know, I think it costs more money to make your own cosplay than it is
I
to buy
agree.
it. It costs
Yeah.
so much money, and then the amount of time, just like thinking of how you're going to construct a garment. It took me a week. It took me a week to make these boot covers for my Lumine cosplay from Genshin
Oh,
Impact. It took me
yeah.
longer. It took me like 2 weeks because I was sitting there racking my brain, figuring out how I was going to do it, and then after doing the whole process, I realized all the ways I could have improved, and then I can just whip it out much faster
Mm.
the second time around. So just
Yeah.
the tools that you need, especially so like I do I do like to make sure that like the stuff that I put out looks good. If I'm not happy with the way I look, I don't like to post it, and it's something that I have a lot of cosplay that I've never ever posted because I was not happy or satisfied with. And just like getting the tools to like make sure that you're like satisfied with your cosplay costs so much money. For example, like I have a $3,000 sewing machine, and on top of that,
Oh gosh.
I also have a serger because
Oof.
yeah, with a normal sewing machine, like the first sewing machine I ever got was like $80 from Walmart. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, it gets some sewing done, but it has a lot of functions that you can't really use. And on top of that, most of the components are made of plastic and it's not durable. And it like gets jammed all the time when you're trying to craft something. And then it just like destroys your fabric. And the fabric itself costs a lot of money. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you. It's a lot. And that's probably another thing too that people don't realize, right? It's you don't go through all this money, you don't go through all this effort just to attract male attention. That's not
mhm.
the point. You're doing this because one, it allows you to find other people like you. You get to find your people and hang out with them. Two, you get to feel good about it. And there's this whole creative process of creating something from scratch and having that inspiration, building your skills, growing your skills that way. Um, and yeah, I mean, very cool. So, uh, what we've mentioned a little bit about this already so far. Um, you've talked a little bit about the challenges of being a woman cosplayer and in terms of the community, in terms of how men treats you. And we also kind of blended together with what you wish men know about what it's like for you to be a woman cosplayer. Is there anything else you want to say on that point? Like, what do you wish men would know about what it's like for you as a woman cosplayer?
Yeah, but there's also like the point that you brought up earlier, which was also the normies, what differentiated cosplayers from normies. And normies, like like my family, they're normies. How they see into it is like, man, they're like showing off skin. They just want attention. There's some people who think it's pretty cool and they like compliment you, but then there are just like other people they think you're weird. And this goes also back to like, growing up and being in school. It wasn't normal to like anime, so a lot of it introducing there's also like introducing normies who are like, ooh, this is cool. I kind of want to get into the cosplay environment, but there's a bunch of them that don't really know etiquette and like social rules and
Yeah.
boundaries. And then this is going to play into the men part. For ladies, it's more of like understanding that it's like empowerment, feeling good about yourself, having fun. And then that also plays for men too, but some of the experiences that I've had um, with
Okay.
men are a little
So
different.
you mentioned something earlier that I want to dig a little bit deeper into. You mentioned about how uh, men needs to know the etiquette that cosplay is not consent. Now,
Mhm.
being somebody who is kind of in a cosplay community, I've seen that phrase and I think I understand it. But I'm assuming that at least some of my viewers for watching this episode probably don't really know what that means. What does that phrase mean to you? Cosplay is not consent. What
So
is it not a consent to?
it's not consent for you to come out and just touch a cosplayer however you want. You don't just come out and like, because some cosplays they can show some skin, and with cosplay it's like you get to be someone else for the day, but they also need to understand that you yourself are an individual person and that you're not an actual like character mascot that they can do whatever they want to. For example, Emerald City Comic Con is one where there are a lot of normies. So there's a lot of cosplayers. So at anime conventions, you get a lot of anime nerds that come together. And then
Mm-hmm.
at the Comic Con, which is more of like DC, Marvel, and stuff, because it's been big in the movie industry lately.
It's been mainstream, yeah.
It's been mainstream. So a lot of normies who aren't like into like the anime stuff, they will come to those conventions because you know, some of the actors show up. They grow this love for comics and stuff, so they get to go see more of it, and then they see cosplayers and they don't exactly understand the code, like the code of conduct. Like I said earlier, cosplay is a way to, like, you get to feel like you're someone else for the day. It builds a confidence. You also get to like hide your normal self under wigs, makeup. You get to transform into someone totally different. And then when you're going into like a convention, like I said before, it's like you're leaving the real world and you're going into like a convention. It's like a totally different world. And then some people just don't understand that cosplayers are individuals and they feel like they're entitled to like touch them. So at Emerald City Comic Con, I was Yoshette, and we had the whole the Boozette, Bowsette, the entire group.
So that would be this one.
Yep, and we had a Chompette, and we were a group, and there was this little boy who was all like, I love Yoshi, and wanted to take a picture. So I let him ride on my back with like my little turtle shell to take a picture. And as I was posing, there were these men who were coming by, and they're like, that's a nice ass. And they went to go grab for it. But we had a friend with us at the time who slapped their hand and was like, no, you cannot do that. And they, just because you're dressed like that, it's not for you to come and touch us, you know, as cosplayers.
It's not an invitation to sexual harassment, right?
Yes, exactly. It's not an invitation for sexual harassment. Like, we know we look good. We know, like, you like what you see, but it doesn't mean you can come and touch us.
Right.
So,
at least without permission.
Yeah, you need to go get consent. Even like when you're taking photos, like photo etiquette, people ask to take pictures, which is great, but you need to ask if, you know, it's all right if I put my hand on your shoulder. There are people who will like, you're like, yeah, you can take a picture, and then they just run up and they grab you by your waist, and it makes you really, really uncomfortable. Or like they try and put their hand on your hip, and it's like, whoa, this is not what I signed up for. I just, you know, you asked for a picture, and then if you want to take a picture with me, that's okay too. But you can't just come and touch me. There are people who have developed etiquette where they do the hover hand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they're all like, oh, I'm just gonna do the hover hand, and that's okay too. But if you want to touch the person, you gotta ask.
Kind of awkward though.
No, not really. I appreciate it. Even if like they ask, is it okay to do this, and they don't touch you, that's fine too. They're like respecting your space. They're respecting your boundaries. Just like asking, asking is being respectful instead of just doing, which would make someone uncomfortable.
Yeah. You know what? You're right. Come to think of it, I guess being part of the cosplay community, I did pick up on these kinds of etiquettes as I go along, and I got used to the idea. And one of the reasons, and I'm not sure if I should be saying this out loud on a public recording, but one of my motivation for doing cosplay actually was to get to know some of these really attractive women and get my pictures taken with them, because it's one thing to show pictures of cosplay women and men to people. It's another thing to take a picture with them and be like, see, I was there and I was right there with them, and yeah, they really look as good as the picture does. And that's a different thing that I like to show, other people this side of my world, where I'm like, I really like anime and I really like game stuff, and people just don't realize that until they see it.
It's a lot easier to connect with people if you are cosplaying. I mean,
yeah.
I kind of do the same thing, like I'm in cosplay. I see a cool cosplayer over there. I want a picture with them. Be all like, look, I took a picture with this person.
Yeah, exactly.
You see that?
But I did definitely pick up on that, where I was like, I got used to approaching people for pictures, and I'm like, hey, you look great. Can I take a picture with you? And can I take a picture of you? And then let's say, and I don't know if you remember this. I when I went to conventions, I would run around with essentially a tripod because I don't know that many people in the cosplay community, and I'm usually too busy running around. I just wanted to meet as many people as possible and take pictures of all of their amazing cosplays and take pictures together with them. And so I have the tripod. I'd be like, okay, I want to take a picture of you first, and then I want to take a picture with you. And when I'm next to them, I'm like, okay, do you mind if I put my arm around you? Do you mind if I do this? And more often than not, they're like, yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks for asking. And I'm like, yeah, of course. Of course I would ask. I definitely don't want to make people uncomfortable. And that leads its way to other parts of my life too, where I'm like, oh yeah, if I'm not sure about something or if I want to know where somebody's boundaries are, I just need to ask and then I just need to respect it.
Yeah,
And
it's always okay to ask, and I always appreciate when someone asks because it shows that you're being a respectful, decent human being.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we are almost at 40 minutes, and I usually try to end the session, the recording right about here. Is there anything else that you want to say to my viewers, especially the men, about you, your experiences about what it's like being a woman cosplayer?
well, first off, we dress up for ourselves. We don't dress up for others. Um, it makes us feel good. We like to empower ourselves. This is like not just as a woman. This is men, women, whatever gender you are. I feel like people when they cosplay, they do it for themselves. They're not doing it for
Mm.
others. It makes them feel good. Um, they do put a lot of work. Even a closet cosplay. When you said that is a fake cosplay, it's not a fake cosplay. It takes like sometimes you know how there are some people who are like in the closet like
Yeah,
about like
yeah,
their sexuality.
yeah.
Some people they've always wanted to like cosplay and they were never given like the opportunity to do so because they were scared of what their family would think, you know. So they get introduced by doing like a closet cosplay and that also takes a lot of effort, you know, when you because a lot of people they don't have the funds for like these costumes and stuff and it takes a lot of work trying to find things that match like
Mm.
your character so that you
Yeah.
can try and be them. And still, closet cosplay is fun. I mean, I'm down for like a closet cosplay party,
Wow.
Thanksgiving, you know? Like,
Well,
so,
thank you for that. And I think you totally called me out there. I think probably given the opportunity and enough given enough resources, I would have liked to do a lot more cosplays and I haven't for various reasons. There's actually a few cosplays that I really would like to do. So again, I don't know how kosher it is to mention this in like a public thing, but I don't know if you know the game Saints Row. Do you know the game Saints Row?
Saints Row, I
Yeah.
do not know the game. Explain it to me.
Okay, so Saints Row is almost like a GTA clone kind of thing, but it
Oh,
has its
okay.
own twist. Anyway, so there's this one particular character. Well, basically, you design the character yourself, the main character, so it can look like anything, anyone you want. Could be male, could be female, could be a cross. Doesn't matter. Who cares? But then there's one particular costume in the game later on in like Saints Row 3 or something where you dress up as a cardinal. So it
Hmm.
is a very it is a very irreverent take on a religious garb. And
Hmm.
on top of that, at that point around that point in the game the there is a particular weapon that behaves much like a baseball bat and it's called the penetrator, which
Okay.
yeah, so it's basically like a 4 foot long phallic looking thing and it wiggles around and you whack people to death with it. Anyway, um and I I would love to do that kind of cosplay, wearing that kind of garb, carrying the penetrator. Probably never gonna happen in my lifetime because it would just not it
I've
would not be
noticed
okay.
a lot of people. So I never bring religion into anything. I myself am not religious. If people are religious, cool, but some people get really sensitive on
Oh
topics of
yeah.
religion. But I don't know. I mean, you know the Jesus taking the car by the wheel meme? I've
Oh
seen some
yeah.
guys dressed as Jesus and then they have
I have seen that too.
they're on
Yeah.
what the board that what's that board called? Uh
Board?
where you
You
like
mean the
lean for
cross?
no, where you
Oh.
lean forward and it's kind of like not a long board. I forgot what they're called.
Oh,
Um,
those. Yeah. The hoverboards.
the little hoverboard things where you
Right,
use
right.
your
Yeah,
balance
yeah,
to
yeah.
make it go
Yep.
forward.
Hmm.
They'll be all like on one of those and be like Jesus is taking the wheel. I think those meme cosplays are funny. I mean,
Right.
but I've realized humor is much different nowadays versus compared to like a couple like years ago. Like
Yeah.
back then, I guess that's called crude humor, and then now everybody's really sensitive. So it you got to be careful when it comes to
Right. And then there's
offending
another type
people.
of
Like I don't
yeah.
think it's something that you would offend someone at a convention, but like if a normie just on the street who's religious, they'd be all like, "This is blasphemy! You are
Uh,
disrespecting the Lord."
well, for me, it's more a concern coming from my wife. And actually, there's another type of cosplay that I probably would end up never doing. So there's a game, a mobile game called Omyoji, and there's a character there that I
Onmyoji.
thought looks really cool. So Ashura. So I don't know if you know the character there. Um, and I was like, hey, really crazy idea. I was talking to my wife, hey, really crazy idea. I really would like to cosplay Ashura. And she's like, no. And I was like, why not? Well, because he's shirtless. And I'm like,
I
okay.
have
Yeah.
I have a Momonose cosplay that I never ever did, but oh, she's not comfortable with you being shirtless.
Yeah, she's not.
What if you were wearing like so they make like these silicone body suits, like man
Right.
suits, and
I've
then
thought about that. Maybe. Maybe.
you could probably
It's a
always
good
ask her
idea.
something like that and be like, I'm not exactly shirtless. I'm wearing this
I'm not exactly
silicone
shirtless. Yeah.
this
Yeah,
muscle suit.
these fake boobs are not my own boobs. I'm not exposing my
And
upper body.
yeah, and
Yep.
then it has like the chiseled abs and stuff. That's pretty cool. I thought about getting one of those.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Mhm.
cool. Well, maybe something for me to think about. But yeah, all right. Well, we should probably end the episode. So thank you so much again for joining me today for Cocona. And thank you also for all of my viewers. And as always, my question to everybody is, were there things in this episode that were obvious to you? Were there anything new that you learned from this? And if there were things that Cocona and I talked about that seemed obvious to us but was not at all obvious to you, definitely mention it in the comments because I would love to address it either in the comments directly or by having a future episode. And as always, if you like this episode, definitely please subscribe for more content. And I hope that in the future, maybe I'll invite Cocona again or other cosplayers because it would be great to explore this aspect of the world a bit more. Right? Thank you. See you next time.